Hi, in this video, we are going to cover 40 English phrasal verbs with the word in. I'm going to teach you how to sound more natural, more fluent, and more like a native English speaker. But before anything else, please like this video, hit the subscribe button, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any of my free English lessons. Let's dive in. What are phrasal verbs anyway? English phrasal verbs are like special phrases made by combining a verb, which is an action word or a doing word, with one or small words like prepositions. These are words that show relationships like in, on, off, or even adverbs, which are words that describe how something happens, like quickly or slowly. These combinations create unique meanings that might not be obvious when you look at the words individually. Okay, so let's dive in. Our first phrasal verb is fill in. This means to complete or provide missing information. For example, please fill in the form with your personal details. Here's another example. I need to fill in the missing words in this paragraph. Our next phrasal verb is cash in. To cash in means to redeem or convert something into cash. For example, I decided to cash in my savings bonds to pay for this trip. Here's another example. He cashed in his chips and left the casino. Our next English phrasal verb is check in. To check in means to register or arrive at a hotel, airport, or event. For example, we need to check in at the hotel before 3 p.m. Here's another example. Passengers should check in at least 2 hours before the flight. Our next English phrasal verb is give in. To give in means to surrender or yield to someone or something. For example, after a long negotiation, they finally gave in to our demands. Here's another example. Don't give in to peer pressure, stick to your principles. Our next English phrasal verb is drop in. To drop in means to visit someone or someplace without prior notice or without telling them that you're going to be there. For example, feel free to drop in for coffee anytime. Here's another example. I just dropped in at the library to return some books. Our next English phrasal verb is believe in. To believe in means to have faith or trust in someone or something. Here's our first example. I believe in your abilities. You can do it. Here's another example. She doesn't believe in superstitions. A superstition is a belief in something. For example, when you see a black cat, a lot of people consider it as unlucky or that something bad will happen. Now, our next English phrasal verb is tune in. To tune in means to watch or listen to a particular program or station. For example, don't forget to tune in to the news at 10 p.m. Here's another example. Many people tuned in to watch the live concert. Our next English phrasal verb is put in. To put in means to install or place something in a specific location. For example, we're going to put in a new kitchen sink. Here's another example. He put in a lot of effort to finish the project on time. Now, our next English phrasal verb is settle in. To settle in means to become comfortable or established in a new place or situation. For example, it took a while to settle in when I moved to a new city. Here's another example. The new employee is still settling in at the office. Our next English phrasal verb is log in. To log in means to enter a username and password to access a computer system or website. So this is what you do before you are able to access Facebook or YouTube even. Here's our first example. You need to log into your email account to check your messages. Here's another example. I forgot my password and couldn't log in. Our next English phrasal verb is check in on. This means to visit or inquire or ask about someone to see how they are doing. For example, can you check in on my cat while I'm away on vacation? Here's another example. I'll check in on my elderly neighbor to make sure she's okay. Our next English phrasal verb is hand in. To hand in means to submit or give something to a person in authority. So it could be a police or a judge. This is a person in authority. For example, please hand in your assignments by the end of the week. A person in authority here could also be a teacher or a professor. Here's another example. He handed in his resignation letter to the manager. So in this case, the person in authority is the manager. Our next English phrasal verb is result in. To result in means to lead to a particular outcome or consequence. For example, the heavy rain may result in flooding in low-lying areas. Here's another example. His reckless behavior resulted in an accident. In this sentence, the word reckless, it means to have no care, to be without care. Our next English phrasal verb is join in. To join in means to participate or become involved in an activity or conversation. Here's our first example. Feel free to join in the game. We have an extra chair. Here's another example. I wanted to join in the discussion, but I arrived late. Our next English phrasal verb is squeeze in. This means to find a way to fit something into a tight schedule or space. Here's our first example. I'll try to squeeze in a quick workout between meetings. Here's another example. We managed to squeeze in one more person at the dinner table. Our next English phrasal verb is zero in on. This means to focus or target something with precision. So it has to be exact or specific. Here's our first example. The detective zeroed in on the suspect's location. Here's our next example. Let's zero in on the key issues in this project. Our next English phrasal verb is cash in on. Earlier, we already covered cash in, but this has a different meaning from the other one. Cash in on means to take advantage of an opportunity to make money or gain an advantage. For example, the company decided to cash in on the holiday season by offering discounts. Here's another example. She tried to cash in on her fame by launching a clothing line. So it's taking advantage of something. Our next English phrasal verb is tune in to. To tune in to means to adjust a radio or television to a specific station or channel. For example, I'll tune in to the radio station to listen to the latest news. Here's another example. Can you tune in to that channel? There's an interesting documentary on. Our next English phrasal verb is jump in. To jump in means to get involved or participate in an activity without hesitation. For example, don't hesitate, just jump in and help with the project. Here's another example. He jumped in the conversation with some interesting insights. Our next English phrasal verb is give in to. To give in to means to surrender or yield to a desire, temptation, or pressure. Here's our first example. She couldn't resist and gave in to her chocolate craving. Here's another example. Don't give in to fear. face your challenges head on. Our next English phrasal verb is move in. To move in means to start living in a new residence, or a new house, or a new property. Here's our first example. They are excited to move into their new house next month. Here's another example. The new tenant will move in on the 1st of the month. Our next English phrasal verb is call in. To call in means to request or ask someone for assistance or advice. Here's our first example. We had to call in a plumber to fix the leaking pipe. Here's another example. The manager decided to call in a specialist for the project. Our next English phrasal verb is bring in. To bring in means to introduce or to include something new. Here's our first example. The company plans to bring in a new product line next year. Here's another example. Let's bring in some fresh ideas for the marketing campaign. Our next English phrasal verb is buy in. To buy in means to purchase a share or a stake in a business or a project. When you say a stake, it means that you have an interest in something. Here's our first example. Investors are interested in buying into the startup. Here's another example. She bought into the idea of starting a charity organization. Our next English phrasal verb is send in. To send in means to submit or dispatch something by mail or email. Here's our first example. Please send in your application before the deadline. Here's another example. I'll send in the report as soon as it's completed. Our next English phrasal verb is fill in for. This means to temporarily take someone's place or perform their duties. So it's not something that is permanent. You're just doing it for a certain period of time. Here's our first example. I had to fill in for my colleague while they were on vacation. Here's another example. Can you fill in for me at the meeting tomorrow? I have a conflict. Our next English phrasal verb is chip in. To chip in means to contribute or donate a small amount of money or effort. Here's our first example. Everyone chipped in to buy a gift for the retiring coworker. So in this case, everybody is contributing to buy the gift. Here's another example. Can you chip in with some ideas for the project? Our next English phrasal verb is engage in. To engage in means to participate or be involved in an activity or behavior. Here's our first example. It's important to engage in regular exercise for good health. Here's another example. The company does not condone or tolerate employees engaging in harassment. So that means that they will not accept employees who engage in harassment or negative behavior. Our next and last English phrasal verb is key in. To key in means to input or enter information using a keyboard or keypad. Here's our first example. You need to key in the correct code to access the secure area. Here's our next example. Please key in your PIN number to complete the transaction. And there you have it. All of these are phrasal verbs with the word in. If you learned something new, please comment down below a phrasal verb that you learned from this video and try to use it in your own sentence. Once again, please like this video, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of my free English lessons. I'll see you next time.